our choices, whatever they are the choices that are right for us. And whatever they might be, we should not have to feel that our decisions need to be made by someone else's definition of what success for you might look like or what's right for you. It's look inside. What matters to you? What fills you up? What brings you joy? What gives you purpose? And follow that. That no one else can define that for us.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and I'm the founder of Power Purpose Play. And we are a global platform which is dedicated to advancing the personal growth and inner power of women in midlife. Our goal, as you know, is to help you rediscover yourself as you move forward in the next chapter of your life. To that end, I interview incredible women every week who will serve as inspiration for you and who will give you an example of how to face the obstacles in your way and take that first step towards rediscovery. I am incredibly thrilled and honored to have on our show today a woman whose life's work is an example for all of us to realize that we can make a difference in causes that we are passionate about, regardless of obstacles that may be in our way. I'm excited to introduce you today to Deborah Gillis. Deborah is president and CEO of CAMH Foundation, which is a center for addiction and mental health based in Toronto, Canada. A recognized thought leader on gender equality, diversity, and inclusion, Deborah has dedicated her career to driving social change. Deborah's unique blend of passion, strategic vision, and entrepreneurial spirit is helping her lead CAMH Foundation in transforming how Canadians understand and address mental illness in the workplace and in society. Deborah's early work in the public sector focused on employment equity, anti-racism, and LGBTQI rights. She went on to become a consultant and practice leader with 2 global professional service firms. Deborah also worked in the Nova Scotia government and stood as a candidate for elected office. During her time in politics, she first truly understood the power of role models and the urgent need for more of them to inspire girls and young women. In her previous role as president and CEO of Catalyst, which is a global nonprofit, Deborah advised some of the world's most powerful CEOs and leading companies on how to accelerate and advance women into leadership. In 2016, Deborah was named as one of Canadian Business Magazine's 10 most powerful business people and was awarded the Foreign Policy Association Medal. And in 2017, she was appointed to the Canada-United States Council for Advancement of Women Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders. Wow, Deborah, your accomplishments are so many, and I'd like to thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and your vision with our listeners. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you.
Just reading your accomplishments is just so inspiring. So if you don't mind, for the sake of our listeners, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your journey. And especially as I was reading your bio, there seems to be a through line through it about championing initiatives for women and girls and advancing women into leadership. And I also read in your high school, it started, I guess, in high school when you had your debate topic was, be it resolved that women earn the same as men. So I just wondered where that desire to become such a tireless advocate for women, where did that come from?
Well, thanks for the question. It's funny, the debate that you just referred to, I found one day going through an old boxes of stuff that you collect over the years. I was sitting on the floor in the basement of my house and going through things, and I found the debate. And it was, it was funny because at that time I was president and CEO of Catalyst, an organization who's focused on advancing women in business. And I hadn't remembered that debate actually. And so it was kind of an interesting moment to look back at your younger self and to recognize really that this passion for women and women's advancement is something that I'd felt as a young person. And then, of course, as my career went on, found myself in various ways of being able to live that vision. It was actually a pretty special moment to reconnect with that younger self. Honestly, I'm not sure where that really started for me, other than from a real sense of fairness and a belief that everyone should have fair and equal opportunity. I think it also has been informed, and this is part of much of the work that I've been involved in, and it continues today at CAMH Foundation, which is how do we ensure that everyone's potential to contribute, to be the best version of themselves is realized in the opportunities that they get. And that's something that I've felt strongly about throughout my life and career, particularly, again, given that I was someone who grew up in a very small community and didn't have a lot of role models, didn't have a lot of the networks or supports or connection to influence that you might expect. And in many ways, I'm an unusual suspect to have had the opportunity to do the things that I have. But that's because people along the way saw my potential, gave me opportunities that helped my career advance. So this work has been something that's been important to me, as you pointed out, from early days. And I've been privileged to have an opportunity to play some small role.
Well, I don't think it's small, but thank you for sharing that. I really love that, what you mentioned about connecting with your younger self, because that really is such an important thing. Sometimes as adults, as we get busy in our lives and we have all these different roles that we play, that often we forget what was our passion as we were children. And that's one of the things that I say to my clients is, what were you passionate about as a child? Think about that. And maybe that is something that you can move forward in your life, bring into your life moving forward.
Really love that. The other probably big milestone in my life was being diagnosed with breast cancer at 40 years old. I'd had my first mammogram and had what was a pretty frightening diagnosis. And that was one of those moments where, as it does for anyone when you face something like that, where I really stepped back to evaluate my life and what I was doing and how I spent my time and where I spent my time. And it was that moment that actually ultimately led me to leave what was then my career in consulting and to take on the role at Catalyst, because I felt such a deep need to connect with purpose, with work that had meaning to me. And I know that that's something that you very much talk to your audience about, of that connection to purpose. And so it was kind of getting back to something, as you say, that had been important to me from the time I was a young girl, to be able to say, this is where and how I want to spend my time. And that's continued since that time, with just continued focus on purpose-driven work where I have a chance to make a difference in areas that feel very meaningful to me.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I actually was going to ask you about your cancer diagnosis, and because we often talk in this podcast about the challenges that women face, and how do we face these challenges? And obviously having a breast cancer diagnosis at 40 was a big challenge for you, I'm sure. How would you advise women who are facing their own unique challenges? What are some of the things that they can do to get through that?
Oh, I'm sure every woman's experience is different. What I can say in my case is that relying on the network of people around me who were there to offer love and support. That was incredibly important to me in both the early days of dealing with the diagnosis and then, of course, going through my treatment and recovery. It was my husband, first and foremost. We had only been married for 6 months at the time that I had my diagnosis. It was my mom and my sisters who came from Nova Scotia to Toronto to be with me as I underwent my mastectomy. And my mom stayed for weeks after that happened to really care for me with my husband. So, and friends just bringing meals and sending music and books and just notes of encouragement. These are times when I think for women, we're the strong ones. We're there for others. And it can often be hard for us to accept the help of people in our lives. And when you're going through something, the people that love and care about you, they're there for you. And it is not a sign of weakness to let them care for you. And that really helped take some of the emotional burden that I was feeling and just to kind of move forward.
It takes a village sometimes, right? So to really help you get through these things. And if you don't have that, I would say seek it, seek the community or seek the help that is necessary to get through those challenges. Would you agree with that? Or?
Absolutely. And again, there are networks that are both within your own life and circle, friends and family, as I described. And then there are also support groups that are available and many good agencies that offer that opportunity to connect with others who are having a shared experience or understand what you're feeling and going through. And so I just encourage people to tap into whatever is going to give you a sense of a source of strength and support during those challenging times, and recognize that the asking for that kind of help is a demonstration of your own strength.
Right.
And the right thing to do, I think.
That's a really good point. It's not a weakness because we're so used to, as women, always being the support for other people. And when you're facing challenges, we're not used to asking for help. So that's a really great point. So thanks for sharing that. I wanted to, if we could just talk about, or if you could share some of the initiatives that CAMH that you have spearheaded. And one of them that I was reading about was called Women Mind. And I was just reading some of this information. For our listeners, there really is a significant gender gap when it comes to mental health. And research has shown that often overlooks the differences in how women experience mental illness and also how women researchers face biases as they work to advance their careers. So I think if you could explain what this initiative is all about and how can we learn more or contribute to this initiative?
Oh, I'm delighted to talk about Women Mind. This is one of those examples of the kind of continuity in the things that I've worked on. When I was at Catalyst, it was really clear across industries, all sectors, different roles, that women face barriers in advancing their careers. And this is certainly true for women in STEM fields. When I came to CAMH Foundation, one of, again, the things that I learned, this is a first role for me, specifically involved in the healthcare sector. And I learned pretty quickly that the same is true for women in science, in medical research, and that in fact, women are often excluded from research studies in healthcare generally. So that research that's done into healthcare often doesn't really reflect the different experiences of women. Layer on top of that, as you said, that women experience depression, anxiety, and trauma to a greater extent than men, and think about the fact that many treatments used have been disproportionately tested on men and not equitably studied in women. That to me became kind of problem that I wanted to help solve. And so I developed this idea of Women Mind, which is a community of philanthropists and thought leaders who want to tackle these issues, who want to see us close the gender gap in terms of our understanding of women's mental health, And secondly, to help advance the careers of really talented women scientists so that their careers can advance. So we've created this community that has brought together a group of women who are connecting, learning from each other, and are having impact. I mean, I'm just incredibly proud of the progress that we've made in just a short time. Dr. Daisy Singla has become the first woman mind scientist that not only helps advance her career and research, but the work that she's doing in researching perinatal mental health. We've given 3 research grants to 3 women scientists to support their work. There's a mentoring program under development at CAMH to support women scientists and researchers. And we're conducting a search for the first chair in women's mental health. So the philanthropic support of this community of women has really enabled this work to happen in really only the first, 18 months or so that we've launched this initiative. So I'm really proud of what I hope will be a lasting difference that this work will make, both for the careers of these women that we help to support, but also the advancement of work into better understanding the unique mental health challenges faced by women.
That's so surprising and I guess incredible that in the research studies, women are underrepresented, and also that women have greater incidences of mental health. And so the fact that you recognize that and have created this initiative is wonderful. And thank you for sharing that, and congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. What's interesting is when I saw data, the truth is I wasn't surprised. And that's what I said to my colleagues in the hospital. I'm not surprised because I've seen this pattern quite consistently across different industries. And so why would we believe that it would be different in healthcare and women who are engaged in scientific and research work in healthcare? So it was just another data point that says we still have a lot of work to do to create equal opportunities for women. And I think in particular in areas of healthcare that this is critically important, that we are ensuring that not only women's voices, but that women's bodies and women's minds are part of the work that's done to identify treatments going forward.
This is incredible work. And do you think that all of that is changing, or is it that's kind of in the beginning stages, or is it, I don't know. It seems frustrating that in 2021, we're still talking about this, right? So is it something that you think is changing, I guess?
I do. And I think it's changing. I saw changes happen over the course of my time working at Catalyst. I often say one of the biggest shifts that I saw in working with corporate leaders around women's advancement, diversity, and inclusion was in the early days of my work, every conversation boiled down to, well, give me the business case. What is the business case that says that it's better for my business if there are more women in leadership and decision-making tables? By the time I left the organization, those conversations have shifted from essentially prove to me why I should care to I get it. I understand. Help me better move forward. What do I need to do? And while the numbers in terms of women's representation have not necessarily advanced as quickly as we would like, that's a really important shift and progress. And I think that that's accelerated in the last few years, certainly as organizations have become much more attuned to the need to develop, retain, advance diverse talent in their organizations.
Right. And I think it's the awareness that's improving or increasing, and also the mental shift, I guess. So that kind of is a precursor for change, right? So
for sure. Again, when you see someone shift from why to how,
right,
that's pretty fundamental. And again, I think that that's going to be the key driver as we move forward, that people are now in the space of how.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do this? I get it. I know it's important. Let's move forward. So that gives me optimism for the future in terms of the progress that we
Fantastic. This kind of leads into another initiative CAMH has led, and I believe you led as well, is the Not Suicide, Not Today campaign, which is really a much needed conversation on suicide prevention. And I was really quite shocked, actually, to learn about the statistics and that globally, one person dies by suicide every 40 seconds, and nearly 11 Canadians die by suicide every day. So tell us a little bit about this campaign and what does it hope to achieve?
Well, I'm happy to have a chance to talk about it. I think very much that suicide remains one of the deeply stigmatized issues in this mental health space. People are often reluctant to talk about it, whether it is their own issues in terms of suicidal ideation or if someone loses a family member by suicide. And we really felt that it was time to try and lift the stigma by having and opening up a conversation about suicide. And that was part of the impetus for launching Not Suicide, Not Today. We did that on World Suicide Prevention Day in 2020. And we've just been so overwhelmed with the response. I think that many people don't realize that in the worst case, mental illness can lead to suicide. We really wanted to change the conversation, change the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what we've done connected with the campaign is to really direct people to and provide suicide prevention research and initiatives to give people access to those kinds of tools. And because we are an academic research hospital,
mm-hmm.
that then allowed CAMH to provide evidence-informed resources that we really think offer hope. And that's continued. So as we marked World Suicide Prevention Day earlier this month, we evolved to the next phase of the campaign, which we're calling Today. And the Today campaign really talks about mental health research is saving lives today, because it is in the innovation and discovery of new treatments, of earlier prevention, of diagnosis, of treatment, and right across the range of the work of the incredible scientists and researchers at CAMH, that transformed the experience of many patients, offering them help and offering them hope, and we believe changing the trajectory for them. So it's been incredible, the stories that we've seen as we launched Not Suicide Today. Families telling us what a difference it made to them. Individuals reaching out and saying that the messaging, the support, the tools, the conversation really saved their lives.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital created during the campaign what they call the Hope app. And part of what that did was provide people with a digital tool who were experiencing suicidal ideation to build in tools that could have a plan for how they would respond when they were facing times where they were feeling suicidal, reaching out to friends, reaching out to their support network. So proactively helping them manage through. So an example of the kind of evidence-based resources that we prepared that have had really an incredible impact and I hope has made a significant difference in the lives of the people who've accessed the tool.
When I looked at some of the stories, you mentioned the stories, and those stories are so important because it really reflects everyday people. And then the patients who are suffering, or the people who are suffering from depression and potential thoughts of suicide, if they see people every day from all walks of life that are going through it, I think that's so important too. And this is kind of what I try to get across in this podcast, is interviewing women who have everyday women, or people who are going through things, and how do they go through these challenges, and to have the practical resources like the Hope app. It's so fundamental because it's something that somebody can go to as that's happening, right? So
yeah, I agree with that very much. And I think as we've all gone through this pandemic together, it's a reminder of how isolation is, how challenging that is for people. And so again, I see consistency in all of these things. Having role models, having people you can look up to that say to you, you're not alone in this,
mm-hmm.
I think is a really powerful tool for people that offers you hope. It's when you feel alone or that you're the only one or you're the only person experiencing what you're going through, that burden is pretty real. These stories that we shared of people who have faced suicidal ideation and are doing well and thriving in their lives and their careers, again, that offers hope to others who may be in that situation. And as I said, it just gives that sense of you're not alone. It's not only you, that there's hope available, that there are people you can talk to, that there are things that you can do. And
right.
I just believe that has a really powerful impact on people's experience.
100%. Absolutely. So, Deborah, you mentioned the pandemic. Obviously, I can't leave this interview without asking you about that. And you have presided over one of the largest healthcare institutions in Canada over, no doubt, probably the most difficult time in recent history with the pandemic. And from your perspective, what has been the most challenging part of the pandemic for your work, for yourself, for the patients? And that's a big question, but what kind of initiatives also has the hospital instituted regarding the pandemic?
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, so I'll start with a couple of things. The truth is there was a global mental health crisis long before the pandemic hit. The numbers of people dealing with mental illness is staggering around the world. And after almost 2 years now of stress, anxiety, isolation, fatigue, we know that's affecting people, including many who have never experienced mental health challenges in previously. So our goal at CAMH, given that we are a leader in mental health in the country, has really been to be of service, for our research to be of service, as I described earlier, to give people hope when they needed it most. Almost immediately after the pandemic hit us and we went into the first lockdown, we very quickly at the foundation launched a campaign that was called Apart, Not Alone. And we tied that campaign to an online resource of COVID-19 related resources that were everything from how to talk to your kids about what we're going through to how to better manage your own stress or anxiety, tips to remind people that some of what we're all feeling during this time is completely normal reaction to the circumstances we're in. Tools to help people assess whether maybe there's something more serious going on and that some professional help might be needed. So again, there was a real focus on how do we leverage the expertise of the doctors at the hospital to provide evidence-based supports that Canadians could reach, could tap into. And more than 500,000 Canadians tapped into our COVID-19 resource hub over the course of the pandemic. And so we're really proud of that kind of support and of our donor community, coming together and helping us to do these sorts of things. So as we move forward, we know that we're going to be living with the impact of COVID for a long time. And I think we need to, as not only ourselves as an organization, but all of us individually, think about how we move forward to tackle these challenges. And for us, one of the critical pieces of that is investing in research. As I said earlier, it is the discovery of new treatments, of new ways to diagnose mental illness. That diagnosis, treatment, prevention is what will ultimately lead to better outcomes. And so that remains a primary focus for us. And as I said earlier, as we've moved into the second phase of the Today campaign, it is helping people understand that we need to better understand the brain and mental illness, how it is, how we get through prevention, treatment, diagnosis to really support people with better outcomes. The other thing we did was, and this started just prior to the pandemic, is creating a community of business leaders coming together to really step up visibly to talk about mental illness. And again, this is something that I learned from my time at Catalyst, of how important it is to have leaders visibly stepping up as champions of diversity. So in the same way, having organizations focus, develop a mental health strategy, resources, supports for their teams, but importantly, to use their positions of leadership to vulnerably talk about their own experiences. Because again, particularly in workplaces, mental illness is often very much stigmatized, such a great fear to ask for help or support because of concerns about what that might mean for someone's career, how people treat them, see them. And so the more that leaders can step forward to talk openly, the more they will create the psychological safety within a workplace that will allow employees to not only talk about whatever they might be dealing with, but also to get the help that they need. So again, we've created a coalition of business leaders. We've created some products, knowledge products of kinds of strategies that the business community can put together, and a series of different opportunities for business leaders to come together to learn, to hear from experts, to hear from those who are in the mental health space. That part of the work is important to us, recognizing, again, what we've all been through the pandemic. Now we're moving into the phase where we're starting to slowly return to workplaces and to think about that, and knowing that employees have had this deep and often difficult experience over the course of the pandemic. Having organizations be equipped to support their employees is something we're trying to move along as well.
It's fascinating. I just love, I would say it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to the pandemic. And you mentioned the individually, like with the fact that it's a normal to make it normalize it for individuals, and that they're not alone. And that then the whole treatment initiative in terms of research and treatment and diagnosis, and then also bringing in the business leaders and utilizing their positions as champions within their organizations and as well. So it's a huge topic, and the initiatives and the work that CAMH is doing and you're doing is incredible. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I say often to the business leaders community, my challenge or request of them, and this is really true for all of us, but certainly for people who are in positions of leadership, is be the normalizer in chief. The more you talk about it, the more you're open about it, the more you create safe space for those conversations to happen, the easier it will be for employees to truly talk about their own experience, get whatever help that they might need if that's the case. And that's all part of, in my mind, building the kind of inclusive organization that you want, where every single individual is able to show up at work, be seen, be their authentic selves, bring their whole self to the workplace. So I hope that this kind of thread of the strategy, as you described it really well, will help in that.
And the tools that they can access as well. And then having the community of openness and being comfortable and talking about what they're going through, but also accessing the tools that you provide is so important.
Yeah, and they're evidence-based. I mean, I think that's the other important thing. If you go on websites and Google tools for mental health, you'll find many, many apps and resources.
Right.
But what's helpful, of course, again, being a hospital, having an academic mission, having a platform around education, is the things that we put forward are evidence-based. They're informed by the expertise. And so when you consider the kinds of things that we put out there or the advice that we're offering, it comes from that foundation of informed by experts, by data, by research, which is so important.
Yes. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Great. I mean, it's just wonderful, wonderful initiatives. And I wanted to kind of switch a little bit and talk about courage and confidence. You have received countless accolades. I read them in the beginning and in your bio. And for example, you've received an honorary Doctor of Law from Cape Breton University for really dedicating your life's work for women's rights and equality. And I would say many of our listeners have this ambition to do more, to achieve more in their lives, but often that they don't take the first step because they lack the courage to do so. So based on your life's work and all that you've accomplished, how did you develop the confidence to go after what you wanted, and what would you advise women?
Well, that's it's an interesting question. I've said before that I've really benefited throughout my career by an incredible group of mentors and sponsors that frankly had confidence in me often before I had confidence in myself. That those who kind of saw something in me, saw some potential, supported me, gave me opportunities. I give a lot of credit to them for the support that they offered. That said, my advice to women is always, do not underestimate your own hard work, your own courage. Whenever I hear a woman say, "Oh, I'm so lucky, I had this or that opportunity," I always say, "No, you weren't lucky. You created the conditions for that success with your work and your passion and your commitment. You earned the confidence that people placed in you." And so I guess in that is really partly the answer to your question is I worked hard. I earned the confidence of people around me. They were prepared to help move me forward. And I guess in each step, because I've done many different things, from starting my career in the public sector to leaving that work and going to the private sector, to running for elected office, to moving to New York City to run a global nonprofit, to leaving that job that I loved and was passionate about to come back to Canada and lead the CAMH Foundation. Those are all big transitions, big changes. And so I think in each of those moments in my life and my career, they were really driven by a desire to continue to contribute, to learn more, to do the purpose-driven work that we talked about earlier. And that gave me strength. I think when you're following your heart, and that's a source of strength for all of us, because you can't go wrong when you're following your heart and doing what you know to be the right thing for you. And then, as I said, just surround yourself with a network of people, create community, whether it is in the kind of community that you've created here within your own friend and group of people that you've worked with that are part of your life. Those networks are incredibly powerful in lifting us up and giving us courage and strength to take the next step forward, whatever that might be and whatever it might look like for us at different stages of our lives.
I love what you said about following your heart and all the other things, but following your heart for me, obviously that's what I did, building this community, but that's what I really think it's so important. And often when we have something in our heart that's telling us that there's more that we want to do, or there's something different our head gets in the way and we think of all the reasons why we shouldn't do that, or that I'm not good enough for this, I'm not qualified for this, or all the things that get in our way. But like you so aptly said, if you have in your heart what you really are passionate about and that you want to contribute, and it's kind of gets not from yourself, but how do you want to help others or society, then it kind of gets away from yourself and gets out of, it gives you the confidence to go for what you want.
Yeah. And I just think we're often can find ourselves in the position where people would say, well, why would you do that? In my case, why would you leave like this incredible job in living and working in New York City and traveling all over the world and having incredible experiences and opportunities? Why would you leave that? Well, because I felt drawn to do something different.
Yes.
I wanted to take on a new mission and challenge. I wanted to reconnect with my family. I wanted to live again in Canada. I mean, all of those kinds of things. There's all the things that were from the outside where people kind of observing and offering their perspective don't know and understand what is your personal motivation, what will fill you up, what brings you joy, what brings you satisfaction. And I think the key thing, and this is often, again, hard for women, is not to get distracted by those other voices. Our choices, whatever they are the choices that are right for us. And whatever they might be, we should not have to feel that our decisions need to be made by someone else's definition of what success for you might look like or what's right for you. It's look inside. What matters to you? What fills you up? What brings you joy? What gives you purpose? And follow that. That no one else can define that for us. So that to me is kind of the guiding path, I guess.
That just gave me the chills. Couldn't have said it better. I mean, it's true. It's true. It's so true. And that's the sole reason I'm doing this, honestly, is for women to realize that there's so much that they have inside and don't worry about what other people think. Right. So one last question, and this may be an interesting one for you. What are you most proud of?
At this very moment, what I'm most proud of is that I've served as a real role model for my niece from the time she was pretty young and I was doing my work at Catalyst. She was really interested in that. So when I traveled around the world when she was little, I would bring her often dolls in native dress from whatever country I visited. I shared many different kinds of things with her. And I think that my example has inspired her to think big and dream big and pursue those dreams. And so I'm super proud of her, but also feel like that kind of inspiration that I've been able to offer has helped her, I hope, along the beginning of her journey. So I'm proud of that. I think that that's something for all of us. You know, I use that as one example. At the end of the day, you're proud of the impact that you leave on other people, on their lives, and hope that the things that you do or contribute or put out there in the world have somehow made it better for someone else. I mean, I think that this is something that drives many, many women, is the notion of paying it forward. How can we make it better for someone else? Those are the things that at the end of the day make me feel really proud of the work that I've done and continue to choose to do, that it makes a difference for someone. And as I say, my niece is just one example of someone I look at in my own life and say, I know that I've been the role model for her, along with many other great women in her life, obviously, including her mom. But to be one of those role models in her life that has helped make a difference, that's as good as it gets.
That's lovely. Well, I mean, you've been a role model for your niece, but you've been a role model for so many other women in your life and moving forward. And you have made such a big difference. And I just really appreciated the conversation and all the insights you've given, not only from a personal perspective, but also from all the work, the wonderful work that you do. I think that it's so important for me to bring these issues out to my community in terms of mental health awareness and women's equality. So I could talk to you for a long time, but it was just very insightful and I really appreciate it. And is there any final words you'd like to share?
No, just to say thank you. I enjoyed very much our conversation and the opportunity to share a bit of what we're doing at CAMH, the kinds of tools and resources that I talked about. Your listeners can find at camh.ca. And I hope that some of what I've said might inspire some of your listeners to say, I want to learn more.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you how we can learn more, how we can donate and how we can learn more about the future initiatives. But we'll have all the links to everything in our show notes so that people can access all the great initiatives that we talked about. And I'm sure a lot more that are going to be coming up in the pipeline. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you do for society and for individuals. So thanks for your time today.
It was a pleasure.
I was deeply honored to have such an insightful conversation with Deborah Gillis. Her life's work is an example for all of us to realize that we can make a difference in causes that we are passionate about, regardless of obstacles that may be in our way. She had so many important messages, but here are some of her key takeaways. Number 1, when you're going through something, recognize that asking for help is a demonstration of your own strength, and it is the right thing to do, whether that be from people that love and care for you or from external support. It is not a sign of weakness to let them care for you. Number 2, women face barriers in advancing their careers in so many fields, including in science and medical research. Women also experience depression, anxiety, and trauma to a greater extent than men, yet research and treatments are not equitably studied in women. Initiatives such as Woman Mind help us close the gender gap in terms of our understanding of women's mental health and to help advance the careers of really talented women scientists. 3, suicide remains one of the deeply stigmatized issues in this mental health space, yet people are often reluctant to talk about it. It's important to open the conversation on suicide. Having role models who say to you, "You're not alone," in this is really a powerful tool for people that offers them hope. 4, just as it is so important to have leaders visibly stepping up as champions of diversity, so in the same way, having organizations focus and develop a mental health strategy. More importantly, to use their positions of leadership to vulnerably talk about their own experiences. 5, do not underestimate your own hard work, your own courage. You weren't lucky. You created the conditions for that success with your work and your passion and your commitment. You earned the confidence that people placed in you. 6, when you're following your heart, that is a source of strength for all of us because you can't go wrong when you're following your heart and doing what you know to be the right thing for you. 7, find your community or group of people and networks to help lift you up and give you courage to take the next step. 8, people from the outside will offer their advice, but they often don't know and understand what is your personal motivation, what fills you up, what brings you joy and satisfaction. The key thing is not to get distracted from those other voices. 9, our choices, whatever they are the choices that are right for us. Look inside. What matters to you? What fills you up? What brings you joy? What brings you purpose? Follow that. No one else can define that for us. 10, at the end of the day, be proud of the impact you leave on other people, on their lives, and hope that the things you do or contribute or put out in the world have somehow made it better for someone else. How can we make it better for someone else? I hope you're enjoying our podcasts as much as I'm enjoying sharing them with you. We are all here to lift each other up, and as Deborah so eloquently said, how can we make it better for someone else? Through this podcast and through our initiatives at Power Purpose Play, we hope to make life better for you and give you the inspiration and tools to do so.
I'm so excited to share that the doors to our signature course, It's My Time Now, How to Rediscover Yourself in Midlife, are now open. Our online offerings open on November 15th, and we are taking registrations now. Our group coaching option will begin in the new year, but you can also have me as your personal coach guiding you through the process of rediscovery in private one-on-one sessions. It is about finding yourself again, and I'm your guide on this incredible journey. All the details are in the links below. Will you take the time out for yourself? If you're wondering what's next in your life, I know I can help you figure that out. Till next time, my friend, in love and in light.